Hey everybody, so in the next part of this stage I'm actually starting on the canopy. I'm actually in the process of making foliage, which takes some time. I'll put a couple of links below just to YouTube videos where others have showed how to make your own clump foliage. I'm not actually going to teach that specific thing, just direct you to where you can see how that's done. But right now I've got clump foliage just drying right there that I've just mixed, and some that's almost dry. I'm going to have to need, if I'm lucky, that'll be enough to get me through just half, but I doubt. It might not even be enough for that, I have to see. But essentially I'll go through how I'm going to apply the foliage in another video. For now, what I've done is I've created a couple of openings. It looks pretty, because I have an overhead light here, it looks pretty contrasty here, how you can see the openings through the canopy, but once I get the foliage on there, I expect it to look smaller and more irregular. But I wanted some natural lighting in the canopy. I thought it would be kind of cool. And so the work that I do on the edges, I'll be doing the edges on the inside of the canopy, which will make them smaller. I've also used foam. This I took from a friend of mine that actually has already done these canopies before, and in a way to create some bulk and show some irregularity on the canopy treetop, rather than trying to get large amounts of clump foliage to bunch up or things like that. It's just creating a base with an expandable foam first. I won't be using anything with a spray can on that, and even I've been advised that crazy glue can also affect the foam. What I bought, which was fairly reasonable in price, was this DAP Tex Plus multi-purpose foam sealant from Walmart. The one thing that was nice about it is that it cleans up right away with water really well, so I was able to rinse out the tube that it comes in, and the nozzle, once it's closed, I could rinse with water and to be able to use it again. I don't know how much more I'll get out of this, but this was actually pretty decent, and being able to get anything more, even just a small section of canopy or something in the future out of the can, would be nice. So next up, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to paint these canopies just with craft paint, just to get a base color before I put the clump foliage down, and it'll be the same color as the clump foliage. And I'll come back with an update on the next step. Hey everybody, so I'm back with an update in the next stage of the terrain canopy, forest canopy project. It's what I've done since the last update in this sort of tutorial is I've taken a Craft Smart just acrylic paint, something I get at Michael's. I use Shamrock, and I painted the top of and the bottom of the canopy, including the foam. One thing you do want to take special care in is any sort of foam product, unless you know for sure that you can spray an aerosol on it, avoid spraying an aerosol on it because it can ruin foam. There may be types of foam that can take it that I'm not aware of, but I just blanketly don't use rattle can spray cans on foam. And so I used and painted, I diluted it down with some water. It did paint all of this, and as you can see, I've actually started to line the edge with foliage, which I'll also put in those center holes as well. So what I'm going to show you now is exactly how I did that. What Architects of War on their website, for their, which they do it in 10mm scale, but for the smaller ones they just use the clump foliage by Woodland Scenics, which is in sort of blocks, and just I believe glue it on the sides. I wanted to do something a little different to try to use less foliage and perhaps add some more structural integrity, and so I came up with the idea of using these sorry, here I'll pan out these kitchen scrubbing pads. And what I'm doing is borrowing an idea from something else and applying it to this, in that I saw a video where people use these, spray like a glue adhesive similar to this. This is Elmer's spray adhesive, and then put your foliage on it to make bushes. And I thought maybe I should do that and actually make that for the edge of the, like literally using a bush essentially that you would use in wargaming terrain around the edge of the forest terrain, rather than buying the big blocks of the stuff that actually are just the foliage compressed together with glue, I think just in a tougher, tighter formation. And so pretty easy. For those of you that haven't seen a video on making the bushes like this, I'll just make one really quick. The one thing I didn't mention is I glued it on the side with a hot glue gun. So this is the last piece for this half of the board, and I'll just measure it. I've measured this to essentially fit the last section. So essentially what I'll do here, I'll just get in front of the camera. So I'm taking this here. This is the messiest part of the project that I've done so far. Do your best. I use the gloves because I got it on my hands. This stuff you do not want to get on your hands. Not because that I know it's toxic or anything, but it covers it and it's so hard to get off. It really is. And so what I've been doing is sort of spraying it completely. And then what I do is I put it in here, and because this stuff is so sticky and so messy, I drop it in and I throw foliage over the top and I sort of bury it, the piece with the glue on it, and try to just get as much of it covered as possible before touching it again. And so let's go here. One thing I did experiment with a bit because it's so sticky is just letting it dry for a moment, and just doing all of them sort of at once. This is the last one, and just going on the side and just grabbing the ones that I did earlier, just thinking that it might stick a little better, that it might get a little less on my hands. But yeah, there you go. That's a piece of clump foliage now, just covered with. It's just the scrubbing pad covered with flock. And so what I'll do now is I'll just run a bead of the hot glue gun here, which let's see. You will get some, of course, hot glue strings which get into stuff, but I find that they come off pretty easily. They don't make a huge mess. Nothing like what I'm experiencing with this other glue. But it works like a charm. And there you go. It is on there, and I will have to do a little bit of patchwork, like where the glue was on my hand. A little bit came off there. You can probably see it right here. And press some more on there. I'll be covering this in a later stage with liquefied, watered down PVA. And I'm hoping to do some more patchwork during that stage for any areas that may have come off, and I'll be using that for the foam and the rest of the board in the interior. So, okay, so that's how the edges are done. See you in the next update.